The hostess's smile vanished when Takashi Watanabe approached the marble podium of Lumiere, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant. His modest button-down shirt hung loose over department store jeans, a calculated contrast to the Armani and Prada adorning every other patron. The woman's eyes performed a ruthless assessment, lingering on his scuffed shoes before meeting his gaze with practiced indifference. Sumimasen, Ikidori no Yoyaku ga Aramasu *, Takashi said softly in Japanese, explaining he had a reservation for one. The hostess's perfect eyebrows arched. English only, sir. Do you have a reservation? Her voice carried just enough volume for nearby tables to notice. 3 staff members behind her exchanged glances. A young male server smirked and whispered something that made the others snicker. In the mirrored wall behind them, Takashi caught his own reflection, a deliberate disguise that had worked exactly as intended. 6 hours earlier, he'd stepped off his private jet worth more than this entire city block. Now he stood here, invisible. The 53-year-old billionaire investor had bought and transformed failing companies across 3 continents. Yet tonight he was nothing but an inconvenience to be managed. Reservation, the hostess repeated, slower and louder, as if volume could bridge the language gap she presumed existed. Takashi nodded and reached for his phone, prepared to show the confirmation, when a voice cut through the tension. Konbanwa, Okia Kusama. Gooyaku no onami wanendaho ka, *. The perfect Japanese came from a young black woman approaching from a dining room, her server's uniform crisp despite the late hour. Her dark eyes held none of the condescension radiating from her colleagues. Watanabe disu *, Takashi replied, watching surprise flicker across the hostess's face. Mr. Watanabe has a reservation at 8, the waitress explained to her colleague, who suddenly straightened her posture. I'll handle this table, Heather. The hostess's smile reappeared, brittle and professional. Of course, Trinity. Though next time, perhaps remind international guests that we prefer they make their needs known in English. Trinity Wallace revealed nothing in her expression as she gathered a menu. This way, Mr. Watanabe, she said, switching effortlessly back to Japanese. Please follow me. As Takashi followed her through the crowded restaurant, he noticed how other servers stepped aside, how managers nodded in his direction now that he had Trinity as his ambassador. The invisible man had become visible, but only through her. Your Japanese is excellent, he commented, as she led him to a small table near the kitchen rather than the window seats afforded to other diners. Thank you. I've been studying for years, she replied, her accent nearly flawless. I hope this table is acceptable. I'm sorry it's not one of our premium locations, The apology confirmed what Takashi already knew. He was being tucked away, out of sight of the restaurant's elite clientele. Precisely the treatment he had come to observe. It's perfect, he said, settling into his chair. I prefer to watch people, Trinity smiled, the first genuine expression he'd seen since entering Lumiere. Then you've chosen the right spot. You can see everything from here, while remaining, invisible, he suggested. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, not of his face or name, but of the sentiment. Sometimes being invisible has its advantages, Mr. Watanabe, As she handed him the menu, their fingers brushed, and Takashi felt the calluses on her hands, signs of harder work than serving champagne to Chicago's elite. This young woman knew more about invisibility than his social experiment could ever teach him. I'll give you a moment with the menu, she said, turning to leave. Trinity, he called after her, making a decision in that instant that would alter both their lives irrevocably. I'd appreciate your recommendations. I'm new to this establishment, What Takashi couldn't tell her was that by tomorrow afternoon, he wouldn't be new to Lumiere at all. He would own it, along with the 27 other restaurants, 12 hotels, and 4 resorts that comprised the Harrington Hospitality Group. The bankruptcy papers had been signed that morning, the transfer of ownership awaiting only his final authorization. As Trinity turned back toward him, Takashi glimpsed a flash of gold on her wrist, a small Japanese lucky cat charm hanging from a worn leather bracelet, and wondered what other secrets this observant young woman might hold. He had come to study how people treated those without status. Instead, he found himself fascinated by the one person who seemed to understand that true worth had nothing to do with appearances at all. Hello, wonderful viewers. I hope you're enjoying this story so far. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know what part of the world you're connecting from in the comments below. How's your day going? If you're enjoying this type of storytelling and want to join me on more journeys like this, please hit that subscribe button. It truly helps the channel grow and lets me create more content for you. Now, let's continue with Takashi and Trinity's story. Trinity Wallace's small apartment on Chicago's South Side came alive at 5:30 a.m., long before sunrise. She moved quietly through the cramped living space, careful not to wake her siblings as she prepared for another 15-hour day. At 27, she'd been their sole provider since their parents' fatal car accident 3 years ago. In the bathroom mirror, Trinity studied her reflection as she secured her hair in a tight bun for work. Beneath her eyes, faint shadows betrayed her exhaustion, but her posture remained perfect, a discipline learned from years of martial arts classes she could no longer afford. "You're up early," came a sleepy voice. Trinity turned to find her 16-year-old sister, Zora, leaning against the doorframe. "Early shift at Lumiere, then night classes. You know the drill." Zora frowned. "You missed dinner again last night." "I left food in the fridge." "That's not what I meant." Trinity sighed. "I know. But Jackson's college applications are due next month, and your school trip." "Forget the school trip," Zora interrupted. "We hardly see you anymore." Trinity gently squeezed her sister's shoulder. "Just a little longer. When Jackson gets his scholarship and you finish high school, things will change." She reached for the worn Japanese textbook on the counter. "My professor says I'm nearly fluent now. Once I get certified as a translator, you'll move to Japan and leave us behind." "I'll take you with me," Trinity corrected. "Both of you." On the kitchen table lay a stack of bills and a letter from Chicago University about her outstanding tuition. Next to them, an application for a teaching position in Tokyo, her dream since childhood, inspired by the Japanese exchange student who'd lived with their family when Trinity was 9. The woman had taught Trinity her first Japanese words, opening a window to a world beyond Chicago's unforgiving streets. As Trinity prepared breakfast, her phone buzzed with a text from Evan Parker, Lumiere's floor manager. *VIP reservations tonight. Harrington's bringing investors. Don't screw up, *. She tucked the phone away without replying. Charles Harrington, CEO of the hospitality group that owned Lumiere, visited rarely but memorably, always leaving a wake of stressed staff and 0 tips. His approval could mean promotion. His disapproval could cost jobs. "You're doing that thing again," Zora observed, pouring cereal. "What thing?" "Where you're physically here, but your mind is solving problems." Trinity smiled despite herself. "Someone has to solve them." "Dad used to say the same thing," Zora said softly. Their father had been a contractor, their mother a nurse. Both had instilled in Trinity a fierce work ethic and unflinching honesty that sometimes made her life at Lumiere complicated. The restaurant operated on unspoken hierarchies and favoritism that Trinity navigated carefully, staying just valuable enough to keep her job without becoming a target of jealousy. "I met someone interesting last night," Trinity said, changing the subject. "A Japanese businessman who didn't speak English or pretended not to." "Pretended." Trinity nodded. "His clothes were simple but custom-tailored. His watch was subtle but expensive. And when I brought in the check, he signed his name left-handed. But earlier I noticed he used chopsticks with his right." She smiled. "He was watching everyone, especially the staff." "Why would someone rich pretend to be nobody?" "To see the truth, maybe," Trinity replied. "People show you who they really are when they think you don't matter." The truth was what Trinity herself had been hiding from her siblings, that Lumiere's staff operated in cruel hierarchies, that she endured daily indignities to keep this job, that her dream of Japan grew more distant with each emergency expense and tuition increase. As she kissed her sleeping brother's forehead before leaving, Trinity whispered a Japanese proverb her mother used to say, asterisk, Nanakarobi Yaoki asterisk, fall 7 times, stand up 8. On the other side of Chicago, Takeshi Watanabe stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his hotel penthouse, watching the city awaken. Behind him, his assistant, Hiroshi Tanaka, organized documents on the dining table. The final acquisition papers for the Harrington Group, Hiroshi announced. Once signed, the transfer will be complete. Takeshi nodded without turning. And they still don't know. Charles Harrington informed his executive team that they've secured a silent partner to solve their financial troubles. Only his CFO knows they've actually sold controlling interest. Your identity remains confidential per your instructions. Good. Unlike many of his business acquisitions, this one wasn't driven by profit. The Harrington Hospitality Group's properties were underperforming, their staff discontented, their culture toxic. Takeshi had initially been approached about a small investment, but his team's due diligence had revealed deeper problems and an opportunity. Your schedule today includes meetings with our legal team at 10, financial advisors at noon, and dinner at Lumiere to coincide with Harrington's investor meeting. Hiroshi continued. I won't be attending the investor dinner, Takeshi said. At least not as myself. Hiroshi paused. Sir. Takeshi turned from the window. At 53, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had built an empire from nothing. Born to working-class parents in Osaka, he had worked countless menial jobs before founding his tech company at 24. By 40, he'd expanded into real estate, hospitality, and transportation. Now his net worth exceeded $20 billion, yet he remained intensely private, no social media presence, few public appearances, and absolutely no interest in the trappings of wealth that consumed his peers. Last night, I visited Lumiere as a regular customer, Takeshi explained. I wanted to experience it without the influence of my position. Hiroshi, who had served as Takeshi's right hand for 15 years, was accustomed to his employer's unconventional methods. And your assessment? The food was adequate. The service was revealing. Takeshi picked up his phone and showed Hiroshi a photo. This woman was the only staff member who treated me with respect. Hiroshi studied the image of Trinity at Lumiere's entrance, captured from the restaurant's website. You want her information? I want her history, education, family situation, career trajectory. May I ask why? Takeshi rarely explained his decisions, but Hiroshi had earned his trust. When I was 19, I worked as a dishwasher in a luxury hotel in Tokyo. One evening, a famous businessman came to dine and dropped his wallet. I returned it untouched. He was so surprised by my honesty that he became my first investor years later. Takeshi's expression softened with the memory. Character reveals itself when status is removed from the equation. Hiroshi nodded. I'll have Ms. Wallace's information by noon. And Hiroshi, Takeshi added, I'll be returning to Lumiere tonight, again as a regular customer. I want to observe more before revealing my position. As his assistant departed, Takeshi returned to the window. Below, Chicago's elite rushed through their morning routines, oblivious to the quiet revolution he was planning from above. In his experience, true change never came from boardroom declarations or management consultants. It came from identifying the right people and empowering them to transform systems from within. And something told him Trinity Wallace might be exactly that person. Trinity's Wednesday shift began with disaster. A server called in sick, the kitchen ran behind on prep, and a party of 12 arrived without a reservation. By 7, she'd already served 15 tables, each interaction a careful performance of efficiency and invisible labor. Table 6 needs their check, Heather snapped as they passed in the service corridor. As the hostess, Heather technically had no authority over servers, but her relationship with Evan Parker, the floor manager, granted her unofficial power that she wielded liberally. I just delivered their desserts, Trinity replied. Well, now they're in a hurry. Trinity nodded and changed direction, knowing argument was futile. As she passed the kitchen, she overheard Chef Michel berating a line cook. This is Lumiere, not some roadside diner. Standards, people. The restaurant operated on fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of disappointing VIPs, fear of losing the substantial income that kept many of the staff in lifestyles they couldn't otherwise afford. Trinity had seen waiters buy luxury cars with their tips, while line cooks worked second jobs to make rent. When she reached table 6, she found Evan already there, apologizing profusely to the guests, a group of executives whose combined dinner bill would exceed Trinity's weekly salary. "I'm so sorry for the delay," Evan was saying. "Your server will be disciplined appropriately." Trinity froze, the familiar humiliation washing over her. One of the men looked up. "No problem. We're just in a hurry to catch the Lakers game." "Of course, sir," Evan replied, then turned to Trinity with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Trinity, table 6 needs their check immediately." "Yes, sir," she said, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the unnecessary public correction. "I'll bring it right away." As she processed their payment, Trinity's phone vibrated. A text from Jackson, *emergency. Zora, at hospital. Come now, *. Her heart stopped. Her fingers fumbled with the credit card machine as she quickly texted back. What happened? Which hospital? Memorial. Coach thinks broken ankle at basketball practice. Trinity looked at the clock. 7:45 p.m. Her shift ended at midnight. Leaving now would mean termination, especially with Charles Harrington's investor dinner starting in 15 minutes. She approached Evan at the host stand, where he was reviewing the seating chart. "My sister's been injured. She's at Memorial Hospital. I need to leave." Evan didn't look up. "Not happening. Harrington's bringing 6 investors tonight. This is a family emergency." "And this is your job," he countered, finally meeting her eyes. "One you can't afford to lose, if I recall your tuition situation correctly." The casual mention of her financial struggles, information she'd shared in confidence during her hiring, was a deliberate reminder of her precarious position. "I can cover her section," offered Dylan, another server who had overheard. "My tables are mostly finished." Evan shot him a warning look. "Dylan, don't you have city work to do?" Dylan backed away immediately. "Sorry, man. Just trying to help." Trinity swallowed her pride. "Please, Evan. 2 hours. I'll come back and close." "No," he said simply. "Now get back to work before I decide we're overstaffed tonight." As Trinity returned to the floor, fighting tears of frustration, she spotted a familiar figure being seated in her section. The Japanese businessman from the previous night, once again dressed modestly among Lumiere's glittering clientele. Composing herself, she approached his table. "Good evening, Mr. Watanabe. Welcome back to Lumiere, *. Takashi studied her face. "You're troubled tonight, *, he observed in Japanese. The simple comment, delivered with genuine concern rather than the performative sympathy of Lumiere's customer service script, nearly broke Trinity's careful composure. Family emergency, *, she explained briefly. But I cannot leave, *. Why not, *? I would lose my job, *. Takashi's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in his eyes. "I see, *. As Trinity took his order, her phone buzzed again. "Jackson, doctor waiting. Zora asking for you, *. "I'm sorry, *, Takashi said, switching to accented English. "You go. Family important." Trinity blinked in surprise. "I can't. My manager refused." "Which one is manager?" She hesitated, then subtly nodded toward Evan, who was fawning over a group of well-dressed businessmen. Harrington's investors, presumably. "Thank you for understanding, Mr. Watanabe, but I'll be serving you tonight." Trinity forced a smile. "Our special is the miso black cod." As she turned to place his order, Trinity didn't see Takashi stand and walk directly to Evan Parker. She didn't hear their brief exchange or notice Evan's face pale. She only registered the hand on her shoulder as she returned from the kitchen minutes later. "Go," Evan said tightly. "Your shift is covered." Trinity stared at him. "What?" "That gentleman," he nodded toward Takashi's table, now empty, "apparently speaks more English than he let on. He suggested I reconsider my position if I wanted to continue working here." He threatened you? Not exactly. He just seemed very certain. Evan's expression darkened. But be back by 10. And Trinity? This better be legitimate. At Memorial Hospital, Trinity found Zora in the orthopedic ward, her ankle wrapped and elevated. Jackson paced nearby, his lanky 17-year-old frame radiating anxiety. Finally, he exclaimed when Trinity appeared. They won't do anything without adult consent. I'm here now, Trinity said, hugging them both before speaking with the doctor. The diagnosis was a severe sprain requiring immobilization and physical therapy, expenses their insurance would only partially cover. As Trinity signed the necessary forms, calculating which bills could be delayed to pay for Zora's treatment, her phone buzzed with texts from coworkers. Asterisk Dylan, WTF is happening at Lumiere. Harrington, in total meltdown, asterisk. Asterisk Samira, where are you? Chaos here. Some investor pulled out. Manager looking for you, asterisk. Trinity checked the time, 9:45. She needed to leave immediately to make it back by 10. I have to return to work, she told her siblings. Can Mrs. Henderson from next door stay with you until I'm back? You're leaving? Zora asked incredulously. I'm injured. I know, baby. I'm sorry. But if I lose this job, we lose everything, Jackson finished, understanding in his young eyes. Go. We'll be fine. Trinity kissed them both, promising to return by 1 a.m., and rushed back to Lumiere, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Something was happening at the restaurant, and somehow Mr. Watanabe was involved. When she arrived at 10:08 p.m., the atmosphere had transformed. Staff huddled in corners, whispering urgently. The dining room hummed with speculation. Near the bar, Charles Harrington, a silver-haired man Trinity had seen only in company photos, argued heatedly with two suited individuals. Trinity. Evan intercepted her at the staff entrance. Where the hell have you been? My sister. Never mind that. Harrington's asking for you. Me? Why would he? The investor dinner imploded. Apparently, the Japanese guy you've been serving told someone he's withdrawing his offer. Now they're all pulling out. Trinity felt the blood drain from her face. Mr. Watanabe is an investor? Who knows? But he mentioned your name to Harrington, and now the boss wants to talk to you immediately. Evan's expression was a mixture of suspicion and fear. What did you say to him, Trinity? Nothing. Ms. Wallace, came an authoritative voice. They turned to find Charles Harrington himself standing behind them, his expression unreadable. A word, please. Evan backed away immediately, shooting Trinity a look that clearly said you're on your own. Harrington led Trinity to his private office at the back of the restaurant, a space she'd never entered in her 3 years at Lumiere. The wood-paneled room contained a desk that likely cost more than her annual salary. Do you know who Takeshi Watanabe is? Harrington asked without preamble. Trinity shook her head. Just a customer I served yesterday and briefly tonight. Harrington's laugh was bitter. Takeshi Watanabe is the CEO of Watanabe Global, one of Asia's largest private investment firms. He was considering a significant investment in the Harrington Group. He fixed Trinity with a hard stare. Until tonight, when he informed my team that he was reconsidering based on how management treated staff. Trinity's mind raced. The modest businessman who'd spoken Japanese with her was a powerful CEO who had somehow intervened in her situation. Sir, I don't understand. He specifically mentioned an incident tonight involving a family emergency. Harrington's eyes narrowed. Care to explain? Trinity straightened her spine. My sister was injured. I asked for permission to leave temporarily. My request was denied. By whom? Evan Parker, sir. Harrington nodded slowly. And what exactly did you tell Mr. Watanabe about this? Almost nothing. He observed that I seemed troubled, and I briefly mentioned a family emergency. That's all. Harrington studied her for a long moment. Mr. Watanabe has requested to meet with you tomorrow. Not here, at his hotel. The Peninsula, noon. He handed her a business card with handwritten details. I suggest you don't disappoint him. But my shift. Consider it handled." Harrington's tone made it clear the conversation was over. "Ms. Wallace, I don't know what connection you've established with Takashi Watanabe, but right now, you appear to be the only chance we have of salvaging this deal." As Trinity left the office, the weight of Harrington's words settled on her shoulders. Whatever game Takashi Watanabe was playing, he'd somehow placed her at its center. The question was why, and what exactly he wanted from her. Trinity arrived at the Peninsula Hotel precisely at noon, having spent her morning researching Takashi Watanabe. What she discovered left her breathless. Forbes listed his net worth at $22 billion. His company owned properties across 4 continents. And most remarkably, almost no photographs of him existed online, just formal portraits from years ago and distant paparazzi shots. The man who'd sat unrecognized in Lumiere was one of the most successful investors alive. A discreet hotel employee led Trinity through the lobby to a private elevator. "Mr. Watanabe is expecting you," he said, using a keycard to access the penthouse floor. Trinity smoothed her simple black dress, the nicest outfit she owned, usually reserved for job interviews, and tried to calm her racing heart. Last night, after returning from a hospital at 1 a.m., she'd found 3 voicemails from Charles Harrington and dozens of texts from coworkers. Rumors swirled that Lumiere faced closure, that the entire Harrington group was in financial trouble. And somehow, Trinity Wallace, the invisible waitress, had become the focal point of a billion-dollar drama. The elevator opened directly into a stunning penthouse with panoramic views of Chicago. Takashi Watanabe stood by the windows, dressed not in the modest attire from the restaurant, but in an impeccably tailored suit that emphasized his lean frame. Beside him stood a younger Japanese man with a tablet. "Ms. Wallace," Takashi greeted her in English, his accent more refined than the broken phrases he'd used at Lumiere. "Thank you for coming. This is Hiroshi Tanaka, my assistant." Trinity bowed slightly, a gesture that seemed to surprise and please both men. "Mr. Watanabe, you've caused quite a stir at Lumiere." A hint of amusement crossed his face. "Please sit." They moved to a seating area where a lunch had been arranged. Trinity noticed with surprise that the meal featured her favorite Japanese dishes, information she couldn't recall sharing with him. "You must have questions," Takashi began. "Several hundred," Trinity admitted. "Beginning with why a billionaire CEO pretended to be a regular customer at Lumiere, and why you intervened in my situation last night." Takashi nodded to Hiroshi, who placed a folder before Trinity. Inside were financial documents with the Harrington Group's letterhead. "The Harrington Hospitality Group is bankrupt," Takashi explained. "Charles Harrington approached my company 6 months ago seeking investment. My team discovered systematic financial mismanagement, toxic workplace culture, and discriminatory practices across their properties." Trinity processed this information. "So you were investigating Lumiere?" "I was confirming my team's findings through direct observation." Takashi studied her. "What I witnessed, how staff treated customers they perceived as unimportant, how management handled your family emergency, validated our concerns. And now, as of this morning, Watanabe Global owns 70% of the Harrington Group. Charles Harrington retains a minority stake, but no operational control." Trinity's mind reeled. "You bought the entire company?" "Yes." "Including Lumiere?" "All 28 restaurants, 12 hotels, and 4 resorts." Trinity set down her teacup carefully. "Why are you telling me this?" Takashi's expression remained calm, but his eyes held an intensity that made Trinity's pulse quicken. "Because I need someone I can trust to help me understand the organization from the inside. Someone with integrity, intelligence, and insight into both the customer and employee experience." "You want me to be your informant?" "I want to offer you a position. Special advisor to the CEO on cultural transformation." Trinity almost laughed. "Mr. Watanabe, I'm a waitress." "You're a waitress who speaks fluent Japanese, who treats people with respect regardless of their apparent status, who prioritizes family while maintaining professional commitments, and who notices details others miss." He leaned forward slightly. "You recognized I was testing the restaurant before anyone else did." Trinity thought back to their first interaction. "You were watching everyone." and everyone was showing me exactly who they were. Takashi handed her another document. This position comes with a substantial salary increase, flexible hours to accommodate your education, and full benefits that would cover your sister's medical expenses. Trinity stared at the figure on the page. It was more money than she'd ever imagined earning, enough to secure her siblings' futures and complete her own education without crushing debt. "Why me?" she asked, still disbelieving. "Because transformation requires the right catalyst." Takashi gestured toward the window. "I didn't build my company by following conventional wisdom. I succeeded by identifying people with potential and placing them in positions where they could create change." Trinity thought about Lumiere's hierarchies, about Evan's casual cruelty, about the quiet indignities she'd endured for years. "The staff won't accept me in a leadership role." "That's precisely the point," Takashi replied. "Their reaction will reveal everything we need to know about the company's culture." As Trinity considered his offer, her phone vibrated. A text from Zora. "Where are you? Physical therapy scheduled tomorrow. Insurance needs payment up front. The reality of her situation crystallized. Whatever game Takashi Watanabe was playing, he was offering her a lifeline she couldn't afford to refuse. "If I accept," Trinity said slowly, "I have conditions. My education continues. My siblings' welfare is secured. And I want to understand your true intentions for the company." Takashi smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Your conditions are acceptable. As for my intentions," he nodded to Hiroshi, who presented another document. "This is my vision for transforming the Harrington Group. I'd value your assessment." Trinity scanned the detailed plan for organizational restructuring, new diversity initiatives, transparent compensation policies, and customer service innovations. It was comprehensive, progressive, and completely at odds with Charles Harrington's management philosophy. "This would change everything," she said. "That's the idea." As Trinity signed the employment contract, a sense of vertigo swept over her. 24 hours ago, she'd been a waitress struggling to support her siblings. Now she was joining the executive team of a billion-dollar company. "When do I start?" she asked. "Immediately," Takashi replied. "But no one at Lumiere will know about your new position yet. For the next week, you'll continue as a server while observing operations. Report directly to me, not to Harrington or any existing management." A double agent, Trinity mused. "Consider it your first assignment." Takashi handed her a secure phone. "Use this to contact me or Hiroshi anytime." As Trinity prepared to leave, Hiroshi stepped forward with a small gift box. "Mr. Watanabe asked me to give you this." Inside was a beautiful Lucky Cat charm, similar to the worn one on Trinity's bracelet, but crafted from jade and gold. "For luck in new beginnings," Takashi said in Japanese. Trinity felt a strange fluttering in her chest as their eyes met. "Thank you for seeing me, she replied in his language, meaning it in every sense of the phrase. Trinity's next shift at Lumiere began with a staff meeting called by Charles Harrington himself, an unprecedented event that filled the restaurant with nervous energy. "As you may have heard," Harrington announced to the assembled staff, "the Harrington Group has secured a new investment partner. Watanabe Global has acquired a significant stake in our company and will be implementing changes to improve our operations." Murmurs rippled through the group. Trinity kept her expression neutral, though she alone knew significant stake meant complete control. "These changes will be rolled out gradually," Harrington continued, his usual confidence noticeably diminished. "In the meantime, we've been instructed to continue normal operations while various consultants observe our processes." Evan Parker raised his hand. "Will there be layoffs?" The question everyone feared. Harrington's smile was tight. "That decision hasn't been made. However, I'm told our new partners are primarily concerned with culture, not headcount reductions." As the meeting dispersed, Trinity felt eyes on her. Evan approached, his expression unreadable. "Heard you had a private meeting with Watanabe," he said quietly. News traveled fast in the hospitality world. "Mr. Harrington arranged it," Trinity replied carefully. "What did he want?" to discuss what happened the other night. Evan's jaw tightened. "And what exactly did you tell him about me?" "Only the truth," Trinity said, holding his gaze. Before he could respond, Heather appeared beside him. "Evan, we have a situation. Table 12 is asking for the manager. Something about their reservation being given away." As Evan departed, Trinity noticed Dylan watching her from across the room. He approached cautiously. "So," he said, "you're in with the new owners?" Trinity busied herself folding napkins. "I just had a meeting." "That's not what I heard." Dylan lowered his voice. "Word is Watanabe specifically requested you. People are saying you two have some kind of arrangement." The insinuation was clear and infuriating. People should focus on their jobs instead of spreading rumors. "Hey, I'm on your side," Dylan insisted. "But you should know, Evan's telling everyone you sold out the staff to save your position. That you gave Watanabe a list of people to fire." Trinity's hand stilled. "That's ridiculous." "Maybe. But people are scared, and they need someone to blame." As service began, Trinity felt the atmosphere shift around her. Co-workers who had previously been friendly now avoided her gaze. Conversations halted when she entered the break room. Even the kitchen staff, usually indifferent to front-of-house drama, watched her with new wariness. By 8 o'clock, Trinity was exhausted from navigating the hostility. As she delivered appetizers to a four-top near the window, she spotted a familiar figure at the bar, Takashi Watanabe, once again dressed modestly, observing the restaurant with quiet attention. Their eyes met briefly across the room. Trinity gave a barely perceptible nod before continuing her service. She understood his strategy now. While negotiations happened in boardrooms, the real work of transformation would happen here, on the ground, where patterns of behavior revealed the true culture. What she didn't expect was Charles Harrington's reaction when he spotted Takashi at the bar. The CEO's face flushed with anger as he strode over, gesturing animatedly. Though Trinity couldn't hear their conversation, the body language was clear. Harrington had not been informed of Takashi's visit and was deeply unhappy about it. As Trinity approached the service station, she overheard Evan and Heather whispering. "Harrington's losing it," Evan murmured. "The Japanese investors are talking about a complete management restructuring." "What does that mean for us?" Heather asked. "It means we need leverage," Evan replied. "Something to protect our positions." Their conversation stopped abruptly when they noticed Trinity. Evan's expression hardened. "Table 15 needs water," he snapped. Trinity complied, acutely aware of the power dynamics shifting around her. As she filled water glasses, her secure phone vibrated with a message from Takashi. "Check your email. Important information about internal communication system at Harrington Group. Review immediately. In the staff bathroom, Trinity opened the attached document on her secure phone. What she found made her blood run cold. Screenshots of a private messaging group called Lumiere Underground, where Evan, Heather, and several other staff members shared disparaging comments about customers, manipulated tip pools, and coordinated to sabotage employees they disliked. The most recent messages centered on Trinity herself. Evan, Wallace is somehow involved with the new owners. Need to watch her. Heather, my friend in HR says she had a 3-hour meeting with Watanabe today. Dylan, maybe she's sleeping with him? Would explain her sudden importance. Evan, whatever it is, we need dirt on her. Anyone have access to her employee file? Trinity's hands trembled as she scrolled through months of evidence documenting the toxic culture at Lumiere, a culture she'd experienced, but never imagined was so deliberately orchestrated. The final screenshot was the most disturbing, a message from Charles Harrington himself to Evan, dated 6 months ago. Keep the Wallace girl in line, but don't lose her. She's the only one who can handle the Asian clients properly. Just make sure she remembers her place. As Trinity returned to the floor, she saw her world with new clarity. The system wasn't accidentally broken. It was intentionally designed to maintain power hierarchies while extracting maximum value from workers like her. Near the end of her shift, as Trinity cleared a table, she felt a presence beside her. Takashi stood there, his expression unreadable. Asterisk, do you see it now? Asterisk, he asked quietly, in Japanese. Trinity nodded, understanding he meant not just Lumiere, but the entire system the restaurant represented. Asterisk, what do you want me to do? Asterisk, she asked. Asterisk, for now, observe. Tomorrow we begin the real work. Asterisk, he glanced around the restaurant. Asterisk, the people who built this culture believe they're untouchable. Asterisk. Asterisk, and are they? Asterisk. Takashi's smile was subtle but determined. Asterisk, no one is untouchable, Ms. Wallace. Not even me. Asterisk. As he departed, leaving a generous tip that would undoubtedly fuel more speculation, Trinity felt a curious mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had become a player in a game far larger than she had imagined, with stakes higher than she had ever dared to reach for. What she couldn't yet see was how her own past connected to this unfolding drama, or how her future would soon collide with secrets long buried in the Harrington Group's history. By Friday morning, Trinity had documented dozens of incidents proving systematic discrimination and corruption at Lumiere. Each shift revealed new layers to the restaurant's toxic culture. Servers directed wealthy customers to Evan's section for better tips. Managers comped meals for friends while strictly enforcing policies for others. Line cooks sabotaged food for customers they deemed disrespectful. Through it all, Trinity maintained her waitress role while secretly gathering evidence for Takashi. Their communication had evolved into a seamless partnership, with Trinity's insights complementing Takashi's strategic vision. Each night, she sent detailed reports through the secure phone. Each morning, she received thoughtful responses that made her feel genuinely valued. You seem different, Jackson observed as Trinity prepared breakfast, humming a Japanese song. Less stressed. Trinity smiled. Her new salary had already paid for Zora's physical therapy and cleared their outstanding rent. Things are changing at work. Good changing or weird changing? Zora asked from a couch, her injured ankle propped on pillows. Both, Trinity admitted. It's complicated. Her phone buzzed with a message from Takashi. Asterisk, meeting today, 2 p.m. My office. Bringing key documents. Asterisk. Trinity had visited Takashi's temporary office downtown twice now. Each time, the connection between them deepened beyond professional collaboration. Yesterday, they'd worked through lunch discussing transformation strategies, and Trinity had been surprised to discover Takashi's genuine interest in her ideas. When she shared her vision for improving customer service through cultural sensitivity training, he'd listened with rare intensity. Asterisk, your perspective is invaluable, asterisk, he'd told her in Japanese. Asterisk, you see both sides, the customer experience and the employee reality, asterisk. No one had ever valued Trinity's insights so highly before. After her siblings left for school, Trinity opened her laptop to review the latest documents Hiroshi had sent. Employee complaints filed against Harrington Group properties over the past 5 years. Most have been quietly settled or dismissed, but the pattern is clear. A culture of discrimination and retaliation permeated the entire organization. As Trinity scrolled through the files, a familiar name caught her attention. Wallace, Elaine. Her mother. Trinity's heart stuttered. She clicked on a file dated 7 years ago, a year before her parents' deaths. The complaint described a wrongful termination claim against the Harrington Group's corporate office, where her mother had briefly worked as an administrative assistant. The case had been settled for an undisclosed amount with a strict confidentiality agreement. Why hadn't her mother ever mentioned working for Harrington? Trinity searched for more information, but the file contained only basic details. She checked the time, 10:30 a.m. Her meeting with Takashi wasn't until 2 p.m. She had time to visit someone who might have answers. Aunt Regina's nursing home sat on Chicago's west side, a modest facility where Trinity visited monthly, bringing photos of Jackson and Zora. Her mother's older sister had been battling early-onset dementia for years, her lucid days becoming increasingly rare. Today, Trinity found Aunt Regina in the community room, alert and engaged in a puzzle. Trinity, her aunt's face brightened. What a wonderful surprise. They settled in Regina's room, where Trinity carefully approached the subject. Aunt Regina, did Mom ever mention working for the Harrington Group? Regina's hand stilled. Why are you asking about that? I found her name in some legal documents. A settlement. Regina's eyes clouded. Your mother didn't like to talk about that time. Said it brought back painful memories. What happened? Regina sighed. Elaine worked there briefly, about a year, before you were born. She was young, ambitious. Charles Harrington was just beginning to expand his restaurant business. Trinity leaned forward. Mom worked directly with Charles Harrington. They were... Regina hesitated. Close. Very close for several months. Then suddenly Elaine quit. She wouldn't explain why, but I could tell she was heartbroken. 3 months later, she met your father, and they married quickly. Regina patted Trinity's hand. Your father was a good man. He loved your mother deeply. Trinity's mind raced, calculating timelines. Her parents had married just months before her birth. She'd always assumed it was a whirlwind romance, never questioning the chronology. Aunt Regina, Trinity asked carefully, was Charles Harrington involved with my mother romantically? Regina's expression tightened. I shouldn't be the one telling you this. Please, Trinity pressed. It's important. Regina looked away. Your mother made me promise never to mention it. But yes, they were involved. When it ended, she was devastated and pregnant. The room seemed to tilt beneath Trinity. Are you saying that Charles Harrington is... your biological father? Regina confirmed softly. Your mother told him, but he wanted nothing to do with either of you. He was engaged to Diane Blackwell, old money, connections to hotel properties he needed for expansion. A scandal would have ruined him. She squeezed Trinity's hand. Thomas Wallace knew everything before he married Elaine. He chose to be your father in every way that matters. Trinity's world fractured and reformed in an instant. The man who had avoided her for 3 years at Lumiere, who had treated her as nothing more than a convenient Japanese-speaking server, was her father. The empire she was helping Takashi transform had been built while she was deliberately excluded from it. Does he know? Trinity whispered. Does Harrington know who I am? Yes, Regina said. Your mother made sure of it before she died. She wanted you to have options for college. Her expression darkened. He sent money once, $10,000. Your mother returned it. Trinity recalled Harrington's message to Evan. Keep the Wallace girl in line, but don't lose her. The cruel calculation of it made her physically ill. There's more, Regina added, reaching for a small box beside her bed. Your mother left this for you. I was supposed to give it to you when you turned 25, but... She gestured vaguely to her surroundings, a reminder of her declining health. Inside the box, Trinity found birth certificates, her original one naming Charles Harrington as her father, and the amended one after Thomas Wallace adopted her. There were also letters, photographs, and a legal document that made her gasp, a paternity acknowledgement signed by Charles Harrington, never filed but notarized and legally binding if ever presented. Your mother was smart, Regina said. She knew he might deny it someday. Trinity's hands trembled as she gathered the evidence of her true parentage. All these years working at Lumiere, being treated as disposable by a man who knew she was his daughter. The cosmic cruelty of it burned like acid in her chest. Thank you for telling me, Trinity said, embracing her aunt. I needed to know. What will you do now? Regina asked. Trinity thought of Takashi Watanabe waiting in his office, of the transformation plans they'd been crafting together, of the power she now held. What Mom would have wanted, Trinity answered. I'm going to make him face the truth. Trinity arrived at Takashi's office precisely at 2 p.m., the box of evidence clutched in her hands. His temporary headquarters occupied the top floor of a downtown building, all glass and steel overlooking the city. Hiroshi led her to the conference room where Takashi waited, reviewing documents. He looked up when she entered, his expression shifting from welcome to concern as he registered her distress. Trinity? What's happened? She set the box on the table. I found something you should see before we continue our work together. As she laid out the documents one by one, explaining her discovery and her aunt's confirmation, Takashi listened without interruption. His face revealed nothing, but his eyes never left hers. Charles Harrington is my biological father, Trinity concluded. He's known since before my mother died, yet he's kept me at arm's length, watching me struggle, using me for my language skills while denying our connection. Takashi was silent for a long moment. Then, I knew. Trinity froze. What? Not everything, he clarified. Not the details you've discovered today. But I knew there was a connection between you and Harrington. How long have you known? Since before I approached you. Takashi met her gaze directly. When my team investigated the Harrington Group, they found unusual payment patterns. Small deposits to your mother's account years ago, followed by transfers back to Harrington. It suggested a personal connection, possibly a settlement. Trinity's mind reeled. You've been using me. No. Takashi's response was immediate and firm. I selected you because of your abilities, your character, your insight. The potential connection to Harrington was relevant background, nothing more. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my truth to reveal. Takashi moved closer, his voice softening. I believed if the connection existed, you deserved to discover it on your terms, not mine. Trinity wanted to believe him, but doubt had taken root. All this time we've been planning the company's transformation, and you kept this from me. Trinity, did you ever intend to tell me? Takashi's composure slipped for the first time since she'd met him. I was waiting for the right moment. I wanted to protect you. I don't need protection, Trinity said. I needed honesty. The pain in his eyes was unmistakable. You're right. I apologize. Trinity gathered the documents, needing space to think. I should go. Please don't. Takashi rarely used that word, please. It stopped her at the door. What you've discovered changes our strategy, but not our goal. The Harrington Group still needs transformation. You are still essential to that process. Why? Because I'm the illegitimate daughter he never wanted? A convenient weapon against him. Because you understand better than anyone the impact of his leadership. Takashi approached slowly. This revelation gives you power, Trinity. Not as a weapon, but as truth. Truth that can heal what's broken, in the company and perhaps in yourself. Trinity studied the man before her, the billionaire who'd concealed his identity at Lumiere, who'd seen her when no one else did, who'd offered her opportunities beyond imagination, who'd kept her parentage secret while drawing her deeper into his plans. I need time, she said finally, to process this, to decide what to do next. Takashi nodded. Of course. But before you go, he opened a drawer and removed a folder. There's something else you should see. The real reason I asked you to meet today. Inside was a document titled Project Phoenix, Harrington Group Restructuring Plan. Trinity scanned it quickly, her breath catching when she reached page 3, a proposed new leadership team for the company, with Trinity Wallace listed as Chief Operating Officer. You are going to offer me a permanent executive position? Yes, Takashi said simply. Based solely on your capabilities demonstrated over the past week. He hesitated. The offer still stands, regardless of your decision about Harrington. As Trinity left the building, emotions warred within her. Betrayal at Takashi's omission, rage at Harrington's decades of indifference, and beneath it all, a flicker of something more complex regarding Takashi himself. She had begun to trust him, to value their connection beyond professional boundaries. Now she questioned everything. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Takashi. I understand your anger. Take whatever time you need. But please know this changes nothing about my confidence in you. As she switched to her personal phone to check on her siblings, Trinity found 17 missed calls from Lumiere and a text from Dylan. Emergency. Harrington firing people. Your name on the list. Evan showed everyone your spy reports to Watanabe. Come quick. Trinity's blood ran cold. Somehow, her confidential communications with Takashi had been compromised. As she rushed toward Lumiere, Trinity realized the midpoint revelation wasn't just her discovery of Harrington's paternity. It was the sudden, terrible understanding that the battle lines were now clearly drawn. And she stood exposed in the crossfire. Trinity arrived at Lumiere to find chaos. Staff huddled in tense groups, while Charles Harrington paced the dining room, barking orders at managers. When he spotted Trinity, his face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. "Ms. Wallace," he said, voice dangerously soft. "My office." Now, as Trinity followed him through the restaurant, she felt the weight of dozens of hostile stares. Near the bar, Evan and Heather watched with barely concealed satisfaction. Displayed on a tablet between them was a document Trinity recognized immediately. Her latest report to Takashi, detailing staff misconduct and management failures. In Harrington's office, the tension crystallized as he closed the door and rounded on her. "Explain yourself." Trinity straightened her spine. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir." "Don't play games." He slammed a stack of papers onto the desk, all her confidential reports to Takashi. "You've been spying on my restaurant, documenting private conversations, reporting to Watanabe behind my back." "Mr. Watanabe hired me as an advisor on cultural transformation," Trinity replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "That's exactly what I've been doing, without my knowledge or authorization, with complete authority from the majority owner of this company." Harrington's laugh was bitter. "And what exactly did you do to earn such trust from Takashi Watanabe? A man who's built his career on calculated decisions, suddenly elevating a waitress to his inner circle." The implication was clear and infuriating. Trinity's anger flared, tempting her to reveal everything, to throw her paternity in his face and watch his world collapse. But strategic thinking prevailed. That revelation was her strongest card, one she wouldn't play until the moment of maximum impact. "My qualifications impressed him," she said simply. "Your qualifications?" Harrington's tone dripped with disdain. "Let me be clear, you're fired, effective immediately. Furthermore, I've instructed HR to document your corporate espionage, which violates at least 6 clauses in your employment contract." Trinity maintained her composure. "My contract with Watanabe Global supersedes my agreement with Lumiere." "We'll see what the courts have to say about that," Harrington countered. "In the meantime, you're banned from all Harrington properties. Security will escort you out." As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared at the door. Trinity surrendered her staff badge but kept her phone, maintaining dignity as they led her through the restaurant. The assembled staff watched in silence, some smug, others fearful, a few genuinely concerned. Only Dylan approached, pressing a note into her hand as she passed. Outside, Trinity opened the note. "Asterisk, they hacked your secure phone. Evan has a friend in IT. Be careful. They're coming after your family next. Asterisk." The warning sent ice through her veins. She immediately called Jackson, relief flooding her when he answered. "Where are you?" she asked urgently. "At home with Zora." "What's wrong?" "Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in. I'm on my way." Trinity's next call was to Takashi, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried her Roshi with the same result. As she hailed a taxi, her personal phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, "Ms. Wallace, this is Charles Harrington's attorney. We're preparing legal action regarding your corporate espionage and breach of confidentiality. Cease all communication with Watanabe Global immediately if you wish to avoid criminal charges." Asterisk. By the time Trinity reached her apartment, 2 more threatening messages had arrived. When she opened her email, she found her university account suspended pending an investigation into ethical violations reported by an anonymous source. Evan and Harrington were systematically dismantling her life. Inside, she found her siblings safe but confused. "What's happening?" Jackson demanded. "Some guy came by claiming to be from the building management, asking questions about us." Trinity's heart raced. "Pack essential items. We're staying somewhere else tonight." "Why?" "Trinity, you're scaring us," Zora said, her injured ankle making her especially vulnerable. Trinity had no time to explain fully, but her siblings deserved partial truth. "I've been caught in the middle of a corporate power struggle. The people I work for at Lumiere are retaliating because I've been helping the new owners identify problems in the company." "So you got fired for doing your job?" Jackson asked incredulously. "It's complicated," Trinity replied, gathering documents and medications. But yes, essentially. They took only what they could carry, relocating to a hotel Trinity paid for with her personal credit card, avoiding the corporate card Takashi had provided, which could be traced. Once her siblings were settled in the room, Trinity stepped into the hallway to make one more attempt to reach Takashi. Again, voicemail. She left an urgent message. They've compromised our communications and are threatening legal action. They're also targeting my family. I need to speak with you immediately. Hours passed with no response. Trinity's anxiety mounted as she scoured the internet for information. A breaking business news story provided the answer. Takashi Watanabe returns to Tokyo for emergency board meeting. The article mentioned concerns among Watanabe Global's board about the Harrington acquisition and unexpected complications. Trinity felt abandoned. Had Takashi withdrawn his support now that complications had arisen? Had the revelation about her parentage made her too great a liability? Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from Evan. * hope your new boyfriend's lawyers are good. Harrington's team is building a case against both of you. Smart move getting fired before the company's bankruptcy becomes public. * Trinity frowned. Bankruptcy? According to Takashi, the acquisition had stabilized the company's finances. She searched for recent news about the Harrington Group and found a Business Journal article published hours ago. Harrington Group faces bankruptcy filing despite Watanabe investment. The article detailed allegations that Charles Harrington had misrepresented the company's financial position to Watanabe Global, potentially invalidating the acquisition agreement. Anonymous sources suggested Watanabe might withdraw completely, leaving Harrington to face creditors alone. Trinity's strategic mind clicked into gear. This narrative benefited Harrington, painting him as the victim of Takashi's corporate aggression and Trinity's espionage. The timing was too perfect, coming immediately after her firing. A knock at the hotel room door startled her. Trinity approached cautiously, checking the peephole to find a uniformed courier. "Delivery for Trinity Wallace," he announced when she opened the door a crack. The envelope contained a formal letter from the Harrington Group's legal team, outlining plans to sue her for $5 million in damages for corporate espionage, defamation, and breach of contract. The final paragraph delivered the cruelest blow. Furthermore, our investigation has revealed that you are the legal guardian of minors in potential violation of guardianship requirements. Given your current unemployment and pending legal liabilities, we have submitted a report to Child Protective Services recommending immediate review of your guardianship status. They were threatening to take her siblings. Trinity's hands trembled with rage and fear as she closed the letter. Inside the room, Jackson and Zora watched a movie, oblivious to the threat hanging over them. Trinity had promised her dying parents she would keep their family together. Now everything was unraveling because she trusted Takashi Watanabe, a man who disappeared when she needed him most. Her phone buzzed with yet another text, this one from Dylan. * emergency staff meeting tomorrow. Harrington announcing major restructuring. Rumor is he's selling to some European group to block Watanabe. Watch your back. He's telling everyone you tried to sabotage the company. * Trinity sank onto the hallway floor, overwhelmed. In one day, she discovered her true parentage, lost her job, become the target of legal threats, put her siblings at risk, and apparently lost the support of the one person powerful enough to protect her. As midnight approached, Trinity made a desperate decision. She called Charles Harrington's direct line, unsure if he would answer. He did on the second ring. "Ms. Wallace," he said, his voice cool. "I'm surprised by your audacity." "We need to talk," Trinity replied. "About my mother, Elaine, and about the paternity acknowledgement you signed 27 years ago." Silence stretched for several seconds. When Harrington spoke again, his tone had changed completely. "What did you say?" "I have the original document," Trinity continued. "Notarized. Legally binding. I know everything." Another long pause. "Where did you get that?" "My mother left it for me, along with letters, photographs, and birth certificates, both the original and the amended one after Thomas Wallace adopted me." Harrington's breathing was audible through the phone. "What do you want?" "A meeting. Tomorrow morning. Just you and me. My office. 8 a.m. No. Neutral territory. The lakefront park. 7 a.m. Come alone, or the documents go public immediately." Trinity ended the call before he could respond, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had no idea if her gambit would work, but she had to try something to protect her siblings. As she returned to the hotel room, her secure phone, silent all day, finally buzzed with a message from Hiroshi. Asterisk Ms. Wallace, Mr. Watanabe apologizes for the communication delay. Urgent situation required his presence in Tokyo. He asks that you trust him and avoid contact with Harrington until his return tomorrow evening. Security team en route to your location. Asterisk. The message came too late. Trinity had already set a meeting that could either save her family or destroy whatever remained of her future. As she watched her siblings sleep, Trinity faced the darkest hours of her life alone, uncertain whom to trust and aware that by morning, everything would change again. Before dawn, Trinity made final preparations. She scanned all her mother's documents and sent copies to 3 secure locations. Her university email, now suspended but still accessible, a private cloud account, and a USB drive she gave to Jackson with instructions to keep it safe. "What's happening?" he asked, fear evident in his young eyes. "I'm trying to fix things," Trinity answered truthfully. "If I'm not back by noon, take Zora to Aunt Regina's nursing home. There's enough cash in the envelope for transportation and food." "You're scaring me," Jackson said. Trinity hugged him tightly. "I'm scared too. But sometimes you have to face what terrifies you to protect what matters most." The morning air was crisp as Trinity arrived at Lakefront Park at 6:45 a.m. She chose a bench with clear sightlines in all directions, the box of original documents beside her. At precisely 7 a.m., a black town car pulled to the curb. Charles Harrington emerged alone, his usual confidence dimmed by obvious tension. He sat beside her without greeting, his gaze fixed on the lake. "I assume you brought proof of these claims." "They're not claims," Trinity replied, opening the box to show him the contents. "They're facts. Facts you've known for 27 years while you watched me struggle, while you kept me at arm's length at Lumiere, while you instructed Evan Parker to keep me in line." Harrington's jaw tightened at the reference to his message. "What do you want, Ms. Wallace? Money? A position in the company? I want you to call off the lawyers. I want you to retract the report to Child Protective Services. I want you to tell the truth about Takeshi Watanabe's acquisition and stop spreading lies about bankruptcy. And if I don't..." Trinity met his eyes. Her eyes, she realized with a start. They shared the same intense gaze. "Then by noon today, every business publication in the country will receive copies of these documents, along with a detailed account of how you abandoned your daughter, then hired her at your restaurant years later, while hiding your relationship." Harrington studied her with newfound wariness. "You have more of your mother in you than I realized." "I'll take that as a compliment." It wasn't intended as one. He shifted to face her directly. "You think exposing me will solve your problems? You'll destroy your own future in the process. No one hires a whistleblower, especially one involved in corporate espionage." "I'm not afraid of starting over," Trinity replied. "Are you?" The question hung between them as Harrington considered his options. Finally, he sighed. "I'll withdraw the legal threats and the CPS report. But I want those documents. They stay with me. Then we have no deal." Trinity stood. "Goodbye, Mr. Harrington. Watch the news at noon." "Wait." He reached for her arm, but stopped short of touching her. "I'll agree to your terms. But I want your silence in return. Permanent silence." Trinity considered the offer. It would protect her siblings from immediate threat, but leave Takeshi vulnerable to Harrington's machinations. The strategic choice would be to accept, to secure her family's safety first. But something deeper, perhaps her mother's integrity, pushed her toward a different path. "No deal," she said finally. "I won't be silenced about what you've done to me, to my mother, or to the company you've mismanaged for years." As Trinity turned to leave, Harrington called after her. you're making a mistake. Watanabe has abandoned you. He flew back to Tokyo the moment things got complicated. Trinity continued walking, her resolve strengthening with each step. Whether Takashi had truly abandoned her remained to be seen. But she would no longer let Charles Harrington define her worth or determine her future. She had taken only a few steps when a black SUV screeched to a halt nearby. Four men in suits emerged, moving with practiced efficiency toward Harrington. Trinity recognized Hiroshi Tanaka among them. "Mr. Harrington," Hiroshi announced formally, "I represent Watanabe Global's interests in Chicago. We've been attempting to reach you regarding urgent corporate matters." Harrington's expression darkened. "I have nothing to discuss with Watanabe's people without my attorneys present." "That would be unwise," Hiroshi replied, handing him a tablet. "These documents require your immediate attention." As Harrington reviewed the screen, his face paled. He looked up at Trinity with new understanding and barely controlled fury. "You planned this," he accused. Trinity shook her head, equally confused by the sudden intervention. Hiroshi approached her respectfully. "Ms. Wallace, Mr. Watanabe requests your presence at an emergency board meeting this afternoon. A car is waiting to take you to your siblings and then to the corporate headquarters." As Harrington continued reading whatever documents had so disturbed him, Trinity moved toward Hiroshi. "I don't understand. I haven't heard from Mr. Watanabe since yesterday. He returned from Tokyo earlier than expected," Hiroshi explained quietly. "He asked me to tell you that while he was addressing matters abroad, he was not idle regarding your situation here." Trinity glanced back at Harrington, who now spoke urgently into his phone, his expression one of mounting panic. "What did you show him?" "Evidence that his attempts to invalidate the acquisition agreement constitute securities fraud," Hiroshi replied, "along with documentation of his organized effort to threaten and intimidate you, a protected whistleblower under both contract law and federal statutes." As they walked toward the waiting car, Trinity felt the weight of the past 24 hours pressing on her. "I tried to contact Mr. Watanabe. I thought he'd abandoned the situation, abandoned me." Hiroshi's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Watanabe asked me to share a Japanese proverb with you. Nanakarobi yaoki. The same phrase Trinity whispered to her siblings. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. He also asked me to tell you that while he regrets the necessary communication blackout, he never stopped working to protect you and your siblings." Hiroshi hesitated. He was quite insistent about that point. As the car pulled away, Trinity looked back at Charles Harrington, her biological father, still standing by the lake, his empire crumbling around him. The darkest hour was passing, but Trinity knew the most difficult choices still lay ahead. The Watanabe Global Temporary Headquarters hummed with activity when Trinity arrived. Staff moved with purpose through glass-walled conference rooms, while security personnel monitored entrances. The atmosphere suggested not chaos, but coordinated response to crisis, a stark contrast to the fragmentation at Lumiere. Hiroshi led Trinity to a quiet office where Jackson and Zora waited, already brought from the hotel by Takashi's security team. "Trinity." Zora rushed to hug her, concern evident in her young face. "These people showed up at our room saying you sent them. We didn't know what to do." "It's okay," Trinity assured them. "They work for Mr. Watanabe." "The billionaire guy you've been working with?" Jackson asked. "The one who got you fired?" "It's complicated," Trinity began, when the door opened behind her. Takeshi Watanabe entered, looking tired but focused after his trans-Pacific flight. He bowed slightly to the room before addressing Trinity's siblings directly. "Jackson and Zora Wallace," he said, his accent more pronounced than usual. "I apologize for the abrupt introduction and any distress my security team may have caused. Your safety is a priority for me because your sister is a valued colleague." Trinity noted his deliberate framing, not employee, but colleague, a small but significant distinction. "Are we in danger?" Zora asked bluntly. Takeshi considered her question with characteristic seriousness. "Not anymore. But precautions remain necessary while we resolve certain business matters." Jackson studied Takashi with teenage skepticism. So you're the guy who bought the restaurant where Trinity works? I acquired the entire hospitality group, Takashi corrected gently. And despite recent complications, that acquisition remains valid. Trinity cleared her throat. Could we have a moment alone, Mr. Watanabe? He nodded. Of course. Hiroshi will show your siblings to the lounge area where refreshments are available. To Jackson and Zora, please make yourselves comfortable. Your sister and I have much to discuss. When they were alone, the carefully maintained distance between Trinity and Takashi collapsed. He moved toward her, stopping just short of physical contact, his eyes reflecting concern, relief, and something deeper that neither had acknowledged. You're safe, he said softly. I've been worried. You disappeared, Trinity countered, unable to keep accusation from her voice. When everything fell apart, when they threatened my siblings, you were unreachable. A necessary security protocol, Takashi explained. We discovered the breach in our communications system yesterday morning. Any direct contact with you would have compromised our countermeasures. You could have warned me. There wasn't time. His composure slipped, revealing genuine distress. By the time we identified the breach, Harrington had already accessed your reports. I made the difficult decision to fly to Tokyo immediately to secure board support for what would come next. Which is what exactly? Total restructuring of the Harrington Group, beginning today. Takashi moved to a tablet on the desk, displaying a series of documents. While in Tokyo, I obtained unanimous board approval for emergency measures, including the removal of Charles Harrington as CEO, freezing of corporate accounts, and immediate installation of interim leadership. Trinity processed this information. You can do that. The acquisition agreement included specific clauses regarding fraudulent representation of financial status. When Harrington attempted to claim bankruptcy despite our investment, he triggered those clauses. Takashi's expression hardened. He also made a critical mistake in threatening you, a protected employee of Watanabe Global. Trinity sat heavily in a nearby chair, the events of the past 24 hours catching up with her. I confronted him this morning. About being my father. Takashi stilled. What happened? He tried to buy my silence. When I refused, he told me you had abandoned me. Trinity met his gaze. For a few hours, I believed him. The pain in Takashi's eyes was unmistakable. I would never abandon you, Trinity. The simple declaration hung between them, loaded with meanings neither was ready to fully articulate. I know that now, she said. But I need to understand everything, not just pieces of information when you decide I should have them. Complete honesty, or I walk away. Takashi nodded. You deserve nothing less. He sat across from her. Ask me anything. When did you first suspect Harrington was my father? 3 months ago, during initial due diligence. Our team discovered unusual financial transactions between Harrington and your mother, followed by a settlement with strict confidentiality clauses. The timing aligned with your birth. Why didn't you tell me when you recruited me? Because I wasn't certain, and because your value to the transformation had nothing to do with that potential connection. Takashi leaned forward. I chose you based on what I observed at Lumiere, your intelligence, your integrity, your insight. The possibility of a biological connection to Harrington was a separate matter I intended to investigate carefully before approaching you. Trinity considered his explanation. What happens now? With Harrington, with the company, with my position? That depends largely on what you want, Takashi replied. Legally, we have multiple options. We can remove Harrington quietly, allowing him to retire with his reputation intact, but no control over the company. Or we can pursue fraud charges based on his financial misrepresentations, which would likely result in public exposure of all his actions, including his treatment of you. And my documents? The proof of paternity. Those remain yours alone. My legal team can advise you on potential claims against Harrington personally, separate from the corporate matters. Trinity stood, needing to move as she processed these possibilities. And what about my role? Am I still your cultural transformation advisor? Or was that position eliminated when my cover was blown? The COO position I offered remains yours if you want it, Takashi said simply. Your qualifications have only been reinforced by how you've handled this crisis. Trinity turned to face him. Why are you doing this? The truth, Takashi. Not the strategic answer. The use of his first name, the first time she had spoken it, seemed to affect him deeply. He stood and moved toward the window, gathering his thoughts. When I was 19, he began, I worked as a dishwasher in a luxury Tokyo hotel. One night, I returned a wealthy businessman's dropped wallet. That small act of integrity changed my life because someone with power saw value in me that others had missed. He turned to face her. When I observed you at Lumiere, how you treated me when you thought I was nobody, how you maintained your dignity despite daily indignities, I recognized something familiar. Potential waiting for the right opportunity. That explains the initial job offer, Trinity acknowledged. But everything since? The protection of my siblings? The personal interest in my situation with Harrington? Takashi hesitated, venturing into territory clearly unfamiliar to him. In our work together these past days, something unexpected has developed. A connection I did not anticipate, but find increasingly significant. The careful admission hung between them, not quite a declaration, but far more than a professional acknowledgement. I feel it too, Trinity admitted quietly. But I can't sort through that while everything else remains uncertain. Takashi nodded. Then let us create certainty first. A knock interrupted them as Hiroshi entered with a tablet. The emergency board meeting is set to begin in 10 minutes. The transition team is assembled in the main conference room. Takashi thanked him, then turned to Trinity. Will you join us? Not just as an advisor, but as a key decision-maker in what happens next. Trinity thought of her siblings in the lounge, of the documents proving Harrington's paternity, of the staff at Lumiere still unaware of the earthquake about to reshape their world. Most of all, she thought of her mother, who had faced Harrington's rejection alone, who had chosen integrity over easy money, who had ensured Trinity would someday have the evidence needed to make her own choices. I'll join you, Trinity decided. But first, there's something I need to do. The emergency board meeting of Watanabe Global's American division convened with unusual attendees. In addition to executives and legal counsel, the room included Trinity's siblings, seated at the far end with tablets and headphones to occupy them during the proceedings. Why are they here? Asked Jennifer Chun, Watanabe's lead counsel. Because any decisions we make affect their lives too, Trinity replied. And I want them to see how corporations can be run with humanity and transparency. Takashi nodded approval as the meeting began. The legal team outlined 3 scenarios for addressing the Harrington Group's future, each with different implications for the company, its employees, and public perception. Option 1, Jennifer explained, is the clean break. We remove Harrington as CEO, settle any claims privately, and announce a transition to new leadership with minimal disruption. Option 2 involves pursuing legal remedies for Harrington's financial misrepresentations, which would likely result in public litigation and potential criminal charges. Option 3 is the middle path. Harrington steps down voluntarily, acknowledging personal reasons, while we implement the transformation plan without public accusation. The executives debated each option's merits, focusing primarily on financial implications and reputation management. Throughout the discussion, Trinity remained silent, absorbing perspectives while formulating her own. Finally, Takashi turned to her. Ms. Wallace, you've experienced the company's culture directly. Your insight would be valuable. All eyes turned to Trinity, who stood with newfound confidence. None of these options addresses the root issue, she said. The Harrington Group's problems stem from a culture that protects power at the expense of people. Removing Harrington without transforming that culture simply changes the figurehead while leaving the system intact. She moved to the digital display and pulled up images from Lumiere, staff interactions, customer experiences, the physical layout that reinforced hierarchies. Cultural transformation requires both accountability and healing. I propose a 4th option. Trinity outlined her vision. Harrington would acknowledge his mismanagement and step down. The company would implement immediate reforms addressing workplace culture, compensation equity, and customer experience. Most significantly, a truth and reconciliation process would allow employees to share experiences of discrimination without fear of retaliation. As for leadership, Trinity continued, I recommend a transitional council rather than a traditional CEO, combining experienced hospitality executives with representatives from frontline staff. The board members exchanged glances, clearly skeptical about such radical restructuring. One executive cleared his throat. Ms. Wallace, while your insights are valuable, this approach lacks precedent in corporate America. The shareholders will benefit from innovation that addresses the actual problems, Takashi interrupted. Traditional approaches failed this company. Ms. Wallace's strategy aligns with Watanabe Global's philosophy of sustainable transformation. As the discussion continued, Trinity's secure phone buzzed with a message from Harrington himself. Asterisk, we need to talk. Privately. About your mother and about your future. Name your terms. Asterisk. Trinity showed the message to Takashi, whose expression darkened. He's desperate, Takashi observed. Which gives you leverage. Not just leverage, Trinity replied. An opportunity. She addressed the room again. I propose we invite Charles Harrington to join this meeting. Jennifer Chun looked alarmed. That would be highly irregular during contentious negotiations. Sometimes the direct approach is most effective, Takashi said, supporting Trinity's suggestion. Arrange it. 30 minutes later, Charles Harrington entered the conference room, his usual commanding presence diminished by obvious stress. He faltered momentarily upon seeing Trinity seated beside Takashi at the head of the table. Mr. Harrington. Takashi greeted him with formal courtesy. Thank you for joining us. We're discussing the future of your company. Harrington's jaw tightened. My company, despite your maneuvering, Watanabe. Our company, Takashi corrected mildly. As stipulated in the acquisition agreement you signed. Trinity studied the man who had contributed to her existence, but nothing to her life. A man whose choices had shaped her circumstances, while he remained comfortably distant from the consequences. Mr. Harrington, she said, drawing his attention. We've prepared several options regarding your future role with the company. Have you? His tone dripped with condescension. And what qualifies a waitress to determine my future? The room tensed at the deliberate insult. Takashi began to respond, but Trinity raised her hand slightly, indicating she would handle this. My qualifications include intimate knowledge of your company's operations, Mr. Harrington, both as an employee and as your daughter. The words landed like a physical blow. Harrington paled as murmurs spread through the executives who hadn't been privy to this information. That's a private matter, he managed finally. Not anymore, Trinity replied. Not when you used your position to keep me at arm's length for years, knowing exactly who I was. Not when you threatened my siblings to pressure me into silence. Harrington looked around the room, finding no allies. What do you want? Trinity glanced at her siblings, still absorbed in their tablets at the far end of the room. Then she looked at Takashi, whose quiet confidence had never wavered through the crisis. Finally, she addressed the man who had never acknowledged her as his child. I want transformation, she said simply. For the company, for its employees, and for the relationship between us. She outlined her proposal. Harrington would transition to chairman emeritus with no operational control but maintaining partial ownership. He would publicly support the new leadership structure Trinity had proposed. Most importantly, he would acknowledge her as his daughter, not publicly if he chose, but formally in legal documents that would protect her and her siblings. In return, Trinity continued, Watanabe Global will not pursue fraud charges. Your reputation in the business community remains intact, and you have the opportunity to be part of rebuilding the company's culture into something worthy of its potential. Harrington's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, calculation, and finally, a reluctant recognition of the inevitable. You're more like me than you realize, he said quietly. Trinity shook her head. No, I'm like my mother, who faced difficult choices with integrity. And I'm like Thomas Wallace, who understood that parenthood is about love and sacrifice, not biology or convenience. She extended her hand across the table, not in conciliation, but in business partnership. Do we have an agreement, Mr. Harrington? The room held its collective breath as Harrington considered her offer. Finally, he reached across and shook her hand. We do, Ms. Wallace. As the meeting concluded with arrangements for formal documentation of the agreement, Trinity felt a profound shift within herself. The confrontation she had feared for years had finally occurred, not with emotional destruction, but with strategic resolution. Outside the conference room, Takashi found her watching her siblings, who were now exploring the office with the curious energy of teenagers temporarily liberated from crisis. You were extraordinary in there, he said quietly. I was honest, Trinity replied. About what the company needs and what I need. And what do you need now? Takashi asked, the question encompassing far more than professional concerns. Trinity turned to face him fully. What I've always needed. Truth. Purpose. Connection. She hesitated before adding, and perhaps something I didn't know I needed until recently. Someone who sees me completely, without prejudice or preconception. Takashi's expression softened with rare vulnerability. I see you, Trinity Wallace. I have from the first moment. The simple acknowledgement from a man who had hidden his identity to test others' character held profound meaning for Trinity, who had spent her life being overlooked or defined by others' expectations. What happens next, she asked. We rebuild the company, Takashi replied. Together, if you're willing. The transformation will be challenging, but I believe with your insight and my resources, we can create something extraordinary. Trinity thought about the journey ahead, the resistant staff to win over, the toxic culture to dismantle, the relationships to rebuild, including, potentially, with her biological father. She thought about her siblings' futures, now secure with opportunities she could never have imagined days ago. Most of all, she thought about the unexpected partnership forming between herself and Takashi Watanabe, a connection that had begun with a simple act of respect when he appeared to be nobody. I'm willing, she said, extending her hand. Instead of shaking it, Takashi took her hand gently between both of his, a gesture of connection rather than mere agreement. Nanakarobi Yaoki, he said softly. Trinity smiled. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. As her siblings approached, curious about this unusual interaction, Trinity realized they were witnessing the turning point, not just in her career or in the company's future, but in her understanding of her own worth and potential. The invisible waitress and the hidden billionaire had seen each other clearly when no one else could. Now they would transform a broken system into something worthy of the people within it, beginning with the truth that every person deserves to be seen for who they truly are. 3 months after the confrontation with Charles Harrington, Lumiere reopened under new management. Gone were the rigid hierarchies and toxic culture that had defined the restaurant for years. In their place stood a transformed establishment where staff collaborated across traditional boundaries, where compensation reflected contribution rather than favoritism, and where customers received consistent excellence regardless of perceived status. But tonight wasn't about the restaurant's revival. Tonight was about public revelation. Trinity stood backstage at the Chicago Convention Center, reviewing her presentation one final time. In 30 minutes, she would address the annual Hospitality Industry Leadership Summit as the newly appointed Chief Operating Officer of the renamed Phoenix Hospitality Group, formerly the Harrington Group. Her speech would unveil the company's transformation strategy to industry leaders, investors, and media from across the country. Nervous, Takashi appeared beside her, impeccable in a charcoal suit that subtly complemented Trinity's deep blue dress. Terrified, she admitted. 300 industry executives are about to hear a 27-year-old former waitress tell them everything they're doing wrong. Takashi's smile was warm. They're about to hear one of the most innovative leaders in hospitality share a vision for the future. Your background is your strength, Trinity. You understand both sides of the industry in ways they never will. Over the past months, their partnership had deepened beyond professional collaboration. They still maintained appropriate boundaries at work, but evenings often extended into dinner conversations that ranged from business strategy to personal philosophy. Neither had explicitly acknowledged the growing connection between them, yet both recognized its significance. Jackson and Zora arrived, Takashi mentioned. They're seated with Hiroshi in the front row. Trinity smiled gratefully. Her siblings had thrived since the crisis. Jackson receiving early acceptance to Northwestern University with a full scholarship arranged through Takashi's foundation. Zora recovering completely from her injury and developing an interest in hotel management that surprised everyone. And the other special guests? Trinity asked. All present, including Charles Harrington. Trinity nodded, tension visible in her shoulders. Her relationship with her biological father remained complex. Their weekly meetings had evolved from strained negotiations to cautious conversations about the company's future and occasionally their shared past. Harrington had proven surprisingly cooperative with the transformation plan, perhaps recognizing it as his best opportunity for reputation rehabilitation. 5 minutes to showtime, a coordinator announced. Trinity took the deep breath. This feels like the culmination of everything we've been working toward. Not the culmination, Takashi corrected gently. Just another milestone in the journey. As Trinity prepared to take the stage, her secure phone buzzed with an urgent message from Dylan, now Lumiere's assistant manager. *911. Heather and Evan just arrived with Charles Harrington Sr. Something's happening. Trinity frowned. Charles Harrington Sr.? That can't be right. Charles doesn't have a father in the picture. His father died 20 years ago. Takashi's expression darkened. Let me check with security. Before he could move, Hiroshi appeared backstage, his usually calm demeanor visibly disturbed. Mr. Watanabe, we have a situation. Charles Harrington just arrived with an elderly man claiming to be the founder of the original Harrington Hotels. That's impossible, Trinity said. The company history states Charles built the business from nothing. The man has documentation suggesting otherwise, Hiroshi continued. And he's demanding to speak with both of you before the presentation. Trinity and Takashi exchanged glances, their instincts for strategic assessment immediately aligned. Bring them to the green room, Takashi decided. We have 15 minutes before Trinity needs to be on stage. In the green room, they found Charles Harrington looking uncharacteristically shaken. Beside him stood Evan and Heather, their expression smug, and an elderly man who carried himself with unmistakable authority despite his advanced age. Ms. Wallace, Mr. Watanabe, Harrington began stiffly. This is Charles Harrington Sr., my father. The elderly man stepped forward, studying Trinity with unsettling intensity. So you're Elaine's daughter. The resemblance is remarkable. Trinity felt a chill at the casual mention of her mother. I was told you died 20 years ago. A convenient fiction my son created when he took control of my company, the elder Harrington replied. His voice carried the weight of decades of resentment. I've spent the past 20 years in assisted living, declared mentally incompetent by creative legal maneuvering. That's absurd, Charles Harrington interjected. My father suffered a series of strokes that left him unable to manage his affairs. Yet here I stand, remarkably coherent, the old man countered. Thanks to Ms. Parker here, who recognized me from old company photographs when she visited her grandmother at Lakeside Assisted Living. Heather stepped forward, her expression triumphant. I found him 3 weeks ago. When I realized who he was, I started asking questions. The facility staff confirmed he's been there for decades, all expenses paid by the Harrington Group through shell companies. He has no legal guardian, no medical diagnosis justifying his confinement, just monthly payments keeping him isolated. Trinity's strategic mind raced ahead, seeing the implications. You've been planning to reveal this tonight, to disrupt our presentation and discredit the transformation. Actually, Evan added with barely concealed satisfaction, we're here to stop the presentation entirely. Mr. Harrington Sr. is the legal founder and original majority shareholder of Harrington Hotels. If his confinement was fraudulent, all subsequent transfers of ownership, including the sale to Watanabe Global, are potentially invalid. The room fell silent as the magnitude of this revelation settled. If true, the entire acquisition could be nullified, the transformation halted, and both Takashi and Trinity left exposed. Trinity studied the elder Harrington carefully. Something in his eyes reminded her of herself, a keen intelligence and determination that transcended circumstance. Why come forward now, after 20 years? Because Ms. Parker showed me what's happening to my company, he replied. This transformation you're implementing dismantles everything I built. Trinity glanced at Takashi, who remained remarkably composed despite the potential catastrophe unfolding. His slight nod encouraged her to continue handling the situation. Mr. Harrington, Trinity addressed the elder man directly. Before we proceed, I think you should know exactly who I am. She turned to Charles. Would you like to tell your father, or shall I? Charles Harrington's face flushed with anger, but the elder Harrington answered first. I know precisely who you are, young woman. You're my granddaughter. The declaration stunned the room. Evan and Heather exchanged confused glances, clearly not having anticipated this revelation. You knew? Charles asked his father incredulously. Of course I knew, the old man snapped. Elaine Wallace came to see me after you abandoned her. She wanted nothing from you, but she thought I deserved to know I had a grandchild. His gaze softened as he looked at Trinity. She showed me your baby pictures. Promised to bring you to meet me someday. Then suddenly, my son had me declared incompetent and hidden away. Trinity processed this revelation, the pieces aligning with devastating clarity. He confined you because you knew about me, because you might have acknowledged me publicly, or included you in my will, the elder Harrington confirmed, which would have complicated his engagement to Diane Blackwell and her family's hotel properties. The conference coordinator appeared at the door. Ms. Wallace, 5 minutes until you're on. Trinity nodded acknowledgement before addressing the elder Harrington again. You said Evan and Heather showed you our transformation plan. Did they show you the complete strategy or just selected portions? The old man hesitated. They provided summary documents highlighting the dismantling of traditional management structures. I suspected as much. Trinity moved to her presentation tablet and pulled up the full transformation plan. Before you decide to invalidate our work, I'd like you to see what we're actually building. As Trinity scrolled through the comprehensive plan, she highlighted elements that had been deliberately excluded from what Evan had shown. The emphasis on craftsmanship, the apprenticeship programs, the quality standards that exceeded industry norms, and most significantly, the company's renewed focus on family legacy. The Phoenix Group isn't erasing Harrington's history, she explained. We're reclaiming its original values while eliminating toxic practices that develop later. She paused on a particular slide, including this. The slide displayed the architectural plans for the Harrington Legacy Museum, dedicated to the company's founding vision, with Charles Harrington Sr. prominently featured as the visionary founder. The elder Harrington studied the plans with growing interest. This was your idea? Mine and Mr. Watanabe's, Trinity confirmed. We believed the company's true history deserved recognition, even when the available information was incomplete. Takashi finally spoke, addressing the elder Harrington with respect. Sir, if your son concealed your existence through fraudulent means, that is a serious legal matter that deserves proper investigation. But it has no bearing on the validity of our acquisition, which was conducted through proper channels, with a legally recognized management at that time. He's right, Father. Charles Harrington admitted reluctantly. The company was legally mine to sell, regardless of how I initially gained control. The elder Harrington's eyes narrowed. Yet you sold it without my knowledge while keeping me confined. A situation that can be addressed through personal legal action, Takashi suggested, rather than corporate disruption that would harm thousands of employees who've embraced the transformation. Trinity checked the time. 2 minutes until she needed to be on stage. She made a decision, addressing her newly discovered grandfather directly. Mr. Harrington, I've spent the past 3 months rebuilding what your son damaged. Not erasing the Harrington legacy, but restoring its best elements while creating something better for everyone involved. She extended her hand. Instead of trying to stop tonight's presentation, would you consider joining me on stage? As the true founder whose vision we're honoring. The elder Harrington studied Trinity with new appreciation. You have your mother's directness, and apparently my business instincts. He glanced at Charles, then back to Trinity. One acknowledged me when I had nothing to offer. The other hid me away when I threatened his ambitions. He took Trinity's hand. Lead the way, granddaughter. As they prepared to exit, Evan stepped forward. This doesn't change anything. We have documentation of seniors' illegal confinement. We'll go public tonight, regardless. Trinity addressed him calmly. Evan, you and Heather were terminated for cause 3 months ago. Your presence here tonight is technically trespassing. While I appreciate you reuniting me with my grandfather, your attempt to sabotage the company has failed. She nodded to security personnel who had quietly entered the room. These gentlemen will escort you out. Should you choose to pursue legal action regarding Mr. Harrington Sr.'s confinement, that's your right. But it will be handled through proper channels, not through public spectacle. As Evan and Heather were led away, their final gambit neutralized, Takashi approached Trinity and the elder Harrington. It seems tonight's presentation will be even more significant than we planned. Indeed, Trinity agreed, feeling strangely calm despite the chaos of the past 15 minutes. 3 generations of Harringtons, confronting the past and reshaping the future. Charles Harrington watched this exchange with complex emotions visible on his face. Pride, regret, and resignation commingled as his daughter and father prepared to take the stage together. Charles, his father, addressed him directly. We have much to discuss after this event. Years of reckoning ahead of us. I know, Charles acknowledged, surprising Trinity with his subdued tone. For what it's worth, I regret many decisions I've made. Regret is meaningless without action, the elder Harrington replied. Perhaps you could learn something from your daughter about integrity under pressure. As they moved toward the stage, Takashi walked beside Trinity, his hand briefly touching hers, a gesture of support and something more personal that didn't escape the elder Harrington's notice. Your partner seems remarkable, the old man commented quietly. He is, Trinity agreed. He saw value in me when others didn't, including my father. Then he's a wiser man than my son. The elder Harrington straightened his shoulders as they approached the stage entrance. Now let's show this industry what the real Harrington vision looks like, through your eyes, not Charles's. The audience of hospitality executives fell silent as Trinity took the stage, flanked unexpectedly by an elderly gentleman few recognized. The murmurs began immediately as speculation spread through the crowd. Trinity approached the microphone with newfound confidence, surveying the room filled with industry leaders who had never imagined a former waitress addressing them as an equal. Good evening. I'm Trinity Wallace, Chief Operating Officer of the Phoenix Hospitality Group. Before I present our transformation strategy, I'd like to introduce a special guest, Charles Harrington Sr., the original founder of Harrington Hotels and my recently discovered grandfather. Gasps rippled through the audience as cameras flashed. In the front row, Jackson and Zora stared in astonishment. Beside them, Takashi watched Trinity with unmistakable pride. Tonight isn't just about unveiling a new business strategy, Trinity continued. It's about acknowledging truths long hidden and values long forgotten. It's about recognizing that true hospitality isn't built on hierarchy and exclusion, but on seeing the humanity in every person who walks through our doors, whether guest or employee. For the next 45 minutes, Trinity delivered the presentation she'd prepared, now elevated by the unexpected presence of the company's founder. She detailed the transformation already underway, the restructured compensation system, the mentorship programs, the customer experience innovations designed by frontline staff rather than consultants. Throughout, the elder Harrington occasionally added context, his insights reinforcing Trinity's vision rather than contradicting it. The synergy between them was palpable, a natural alignment that seemed to skip a generation. In closing, Trinity said, the Phoenix Group isn't abandoning the Harrington legacy, but reclaiming its original spirit. Under the joint leadership of Watanabe Global and the Harrington family, we're creating a company where everyone belongs, where excellence is expected, but humanity comes first, and where success is measured not just in profit, but in purpose. The applause was thunderous. Industry skepticism transformed to genuine interest as reporters rushed forward with questions. As Trinity fielded inquiries with composed authority, she caught Takashi's eye in the audience. His subtle nod carried a world of meaning, acknowledgement of a pivotal moment navigated with extraordinary skill. Later that evening, as the convention center emptied, Trinity found herself in a quiet moment with her grandfather, Takashi, standing respectfully nearby. "You were magnificent," the elder Harrington told her. "In one night, you've accomplished what I spent decades trying to teach my son, that business success means nothing without personal integrity." "I had good teachers," Trinity replied, thinking of her adoptive parents, of her own struggles, and recently of Takashi's influence. "Including him, I suspect." Her grandfather nodded toward Takashi. "He watches you the way a man watches his future, not merely his business partner." Trinity felt color rise in her cheeks. "We haven't defined our relationship beyond professional collaboration." "Perhaps it's time you did," the old man suggested. "Life is shorter than you imagine, especially when spent waiting for the right moment." He squeezed her hand. "Now, I believe your siblings are waiting to hear about their newly discovered great-grandfather. We should join them." As her grandfather moved toward Jackson and Zora, Takashi approached Trinity, his customary reserve softened by the evening's events. "You transformed potential disaster into triumph," he said. "Few could have managed that situation with such grace." "I had an excellent strategic partner," Trinity replied. "More than a strategic partner, I hope," Takashi said quietly. The simple statement, from a man who measured every word, carried profound significance. Before Trinity could respond, her secure phone buzzed with an urgent message from Jennifer Chun, their legal counsel. *emergency. Charles Harrington just collapsed in the lobby. Paramedics on scene. The following hours unfolded in a blur of hospital corridors and medical consultations. Charles Harrington had suffered a severe heart attack, stress-induced, according to doctors. His condition stabilized after emergency surgery, but recovery would be lengthy. Trinity found herself in the uncomfortable position of next of kin, making decisions for a father who had denied her existence most of her life. With her grandfather deemed too elderly for such responsibility and no other immediate family available, the burden fell to her. "You don't owe him this," Jackson said as they sat in the hospital waiting room at 2 a.m. "After everything he did, or didn't do for you." Trinity watched Zora sleeping across several chairs, exhausted from the night's drama. "It's not about what I owe him. It's about who I choose to be." Nearby, Takashi and the elder Harrington conversed quietly, their unlikely alliance forming around shared concern for Trinity. Throughout the crisis, Takashi had remained by her side, handling press inquiries and corporate matters so she could focus on family. "Ms. Wallace." A doctor approached. "Your father is awake and asking for you." Trinity followed the doctor to the ICU, where Charles Harrington lay connected to monitoring equipment, his usually commanding presence diminished by illness and white hospital linens. "Trinity," he acknowledged weakly. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," she replied, taking the chair beside his bed. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "For everything. For your mother. For not acknowledging you. For wasting decades we could have had." Trinity studied the man who had contributed to her existence, but nothing to her upbringing. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because nearly dying clarifies priorities." He attempted a weak smile. "Also, my father threatened to disown me again if I didn't make amends with you." Despite everything, Trinity found herself smiling. He's quite formidable for a man who's supposed to be mentally incompetent. "You have no idea. Growing up with him." Charles hesitated. "That's not an excuse for my choices. Just context." Trinity considered the complex web of family dynamics that had shaped 3 generations. "I'm not ready to forgive everything," she said honestly. "But I'm willing to start building something new, for grandfather's sake, if nothing else." Charles nodded, acceptance in his eyes. He's lucky to have found you. So is Watanabe, though he might not fully realize it yet. Trinity raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I recognize how he looks at you. It's how I once looked at your mother, before ambition overshadowed everything else. Charles's expression grew serious. Don't make my mistakes, Trinity. Success means nothing without someone to share it with. The conversation shifted to practical matters. Charles's recovery plan, temporary leadership arrangements, the elder Harrington's legal status. Throughout, Trinity maintained professional focus while acknowledging the strange new territory they navigated as father and daughter. When she returned to the waiting room, she found only Takashi remaining, her siblings having been taken home by Hiroshi. Her grandfather escorted to a hotel suite Trinity had arranged. How is he? Takashi asked. Physically stable. Emotionally complicated. Trinity sank into a chair, exhaustion washing over her. It's been quite a night. Indeed. Takashi sat beside her. From triumph to crisis in mere hours. Trinity turned to study him in the harsh hospital lighting. This extraordinary man who had entered her life disguised as an ordinary customer, who had transformed her circumstances while challenging her to transform an entire company. Before everything happened with Charles, she began carefully, you said something about being more than strategic partners. Takashi met her gaze directly. I did. What did you mean exactly? For once, the usually articulate CEO seemed to struggle for words. I meant that our connection has become personally significant to me, beyond our professional collaboration. Trinity smiled at his careful phrasing. You're usually more direct in business negotiations. This is far more important than any business matter, Takashi replied with unexpected intensity, and considerably more terrifying. The admission, from a man who navigated billion-dollar deals with calm precision, touched Trinity deeply. I feel it too, she said simply. This connection between us. It's been growing since that first night at Lumiere. Takashi reached for her hand, the gesture tentative despite his usual confidence. In Japan, there's a concept called a deep connection between people that transcends ordinary relationships. A recognition between souls. Is that what you feel with me? Yes, he answered without hesitation. From the moment you spoke Japanese to me, when everyone else saw only an inconvenience. You saw me, the real me, beneath the disguise. No one had done that in many years. Trinity entwined her fingers with his. And you saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. The simple truth hung between them. Two people who had recognized each other's essence when stripped of status and pretense. In the quiet hospital waiting room at 3 a.m., something profound solidified between them, a foundation for whatever might come next. So, Trinity said, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. What does this mean for us, professionally and personally? Takashi considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. Professionally, we continue our partnership in transforming the company. Your leadership tonight proved what I've known since the beginning. You belong in that role regardless of our personal connection. And personally? Personally, he said, his voice softening, I would like to explore this connection between us. Properly, without the complications of corporate crisis and family revelations. Trinity smiled. Too late for that. Complications seemed to be our specialty. For the first time since she'd met him, Takashi laughed openly, a warm, genuine sound that transformed his usually serious demeanor. Then perhaps we navigate them together, as we've done with everything else. As dawn broke over Chicago, Trinity Wallace, former invisible waitress, newly minted COO, recently discovered heir to a hospitality empire, found herself at the culmination of one journey and the beginning of another. The company's transformation was well underway. Her family expanded in unexpected directions, and her connection with Takashi evolving into something neither had anticipated, but both now embraced. The climactic confrontation had revealed the final pieces of a puzzle Trinity hadn't known she was solving. Not just the mystery of the company's troubled culture, but the truth of her own heritage and potential. In facing these revelations with integrity and strategic wisdom, She had proven herself not just Takashi's equal in business, but his perfect counterpart in life's more personal dimensions. As they left the hospital together, Trinity realized that the invisible billionaire and the overlooked waitress had both found what they truly sought, not just professional success or financial security, but recognition of their authentic selves by someone who truly saw them. 1 year later, the grand reopening of the flagship Phoenix Hotel, formerly the Harrington Plaza, drew celebrities, business leaders, and media from around the world. The completely renovated property embodied the transformation Trinity and Takashi had envisioned. Luxurious without ostentation, exclusive without elitism, staffed by professionals who exhibited genuine pride in their work. In the magnificent lobby, Trinity surveyed the gathering with quiet satisfaction. The past year had been the most challenging and rewarding of her life, implementing the transformation plan across 20 properties while navigating her new family dynamics and deepening relationship with Takashi. "Everything is perfect," Zora declared, appearing beside Trinity in an elegant dress that highlighted her transition from teenager to young woman. At 17, she now served as an official intern with the Phoenix Group's management training program, her natural talent for hospitality flourishing under proper guidance. "Almost perfect," Trinity corrected, checking her watch. Grandfather's flight from Florida was delayed. He should be arriving any minute. The elder Harrington had spent the past year dividing his time between overseeing his son's recovery and consulting on the Phoenix transformation. His insights into the company's original vision had proven invaluable, his energy belying his advanced age. The legal issues surrounding his confinement had been settled quietly, with Charles accepting full responsibility and making significant restitution. "Dad just texted," Jackson reported, joining them. Now a sophomore at Northwestern studying business and international relations, he had grown into a poised young man who balanced academics with occasional consulting work for the Phoenix Group. "He and Mom are 10 minutes out." Trinity smiled at her brother's casual reference to Charles Harrington as Dad, a development that had surprised everyone. Over the past year, Charles had worked to build relationships with Trinity's siblings, his brush with mortality apparently triggering genuine change. While Trinity maintained healthy boundaries with her biological father, she had welcomed his efforts to know Jackson and Zora. "There's Takashi," Zora nudged Trinity, pointing toward the entrance, where Takashi had just arrived with Hiroshi and several board members. Even after a year together, the sight of him still quickened Trinity's pulse. Their relationship had evolved with the same thoughtful intentionality they brought to business, moving from professional collaboration to friendship to romance, with a depth that surprised them both. As Takashi approached, his eyes found Trinity immediately, his public reserve softening with affection. "The press response is extraordinary," he reported. "Every major publication is covering the reopening as a case study in corporate transformation. They're particularly interested in the management structure," Hiroshi added. "The concept of collaborative leadership remains controversial in traditional business circles." Trinity nodded, unsurprised. The Phoenix Group's Leadership Council, combining experienced executives with representatives from frontline staff, had raised eyebrows throughout the industry. Yet the results spoke for themselves. Employee retention had skyrocketed, customer satisfaction had reached unprecedented levels, and profitability had increased by 22%. "Let them be skeptical," she replied. "The numbers make our case." A commotion at the entrance drew their attention as Charles Harrington Sr. arrived, supported by a carved wooden cane, but otherwise moving with remarkable vigor for a man approaching 90. "Grandfather." Zora hurried to greet him, followed by Jackson. Trinity watched their interaction with satisfaction. The revelation of their extended family had given her siblings a sense of heritage they'd lacked since their parents' death, a connection to history that complemented the future Trinity had secured for them. "He looks well," Takashi observed as they watched from across the lobby. "Florida agrees with him," Trinity replied. "Though he claims to hate sitting around with other old people, yet he's extended his stay through the winter." "Only because we promised to visit monthly," Trinity smiled. "And because he's writing his memoirs with help from that graduate student we hired." Their conversation paused as Charles Harrington entered with his new wife, Marjorie, a widow he'd met during cardiac rehabilitation. The past year had transformed him as well, his legendary arrogance tempered by health challenges and public reckoning with his past actions. When Charles spotted Trinity across the lobby, he nodded respectfully, allowing her to decide whether to approach. Their relationship remained professional with occasional personal warmth, a careful balance that acknowledged history without ignoring it. Trinity excused herself from Takashi and crossed to greet her father and his wife. Charles, Marjorie. Welcome. Trinity. Charles embraced her briefly. The hotel is magnificent, even more impressive than the plan suggested. Your father has been giving interviews all morning, Marjorie reported with affectionate exasperation, telling everyone how his granddaughter has revolutionized hospitality. Trinity glanced toward her grandfather, now holding court with several industry executives. He certainly embraced his role as family patriarch. He's making up for lost time, Charles observed, a hint of old resentment surfacing briefly. Though I can hardly blame him. An awkward silence fell, broken by the arrival of Jennifer Chun with last-minute details requiring Trinity's attention. As she excused herself to handle the matter, Trinity reflected on how far they'd all come, from strangers and adversaries to something resembling a family, however unconventional. The formal reopening ceremony began at noon in the hotel's grand ballroom. As chief operating officer, Trinity delivered the primary address, her natural poise enhanced by a year of leadership experience. She outlined the Phoenix philosophy: excellence through respect, innovation through inclusion, success through shared purpose, to enthusiastic response from assembled guests. When she introduced the elder Harrington as the visionary whose original values we've reclaimed, the audience rose in standing ovation. The old man approached the microphone with tears in his eyes. When my son had me locked away 20 years ago, I believed my life's work was finished, he began candidly. I could never have imagined standing here today, witnessing my granddaughter transform that work into something far greater than I envisioned. He turned to Trinity, his pride evident. The Phoenix Group honors the past while creating a future I'm grateful to witness, however briefly. As the ceremony concluded and guests dispersed to tour the property, Takashi drew Trinity aside to a quiet alcove overlooking the Chicago River. You were magnificent, he told her. As always. Trinity smiled. We were magnificent. None of this would exist without your initial vision, or your decision to test Lumiere's service while dressed as a regular customer. The best decision I ever made, Takashi replied softly, though entirely strategic at the time. Their relationship had deepened steadily over the past year, enriched by shared purpose and mutual respect. Unlike Trinity's previous relationships, this connection had developed without urgency but with profound certainty. Two people who had recognized something essential in each other from their first meeting. I have something to discuss with you, Takashi said, his usual composure giving way to rare nervousness. About our future. Trinity felt her heart quicken. What about it? The Tokyo expansion is proceeding ahead of schedule. The properties will be ready within 6 months. Trinity nodded, aware of the extensive planning for the Phoenix Group's first Asian locations. That's excellent news. It also presents a decision point, Takashi continued. The expansion will require significant leadership presence in Japan, at least initially. Are you asking if I'm willing to relocate temporarily? Trinity clarified. Because we've already discussed this. Jackson and Zora are settled here, but I can split my time between. I'm not asking about temporary arrangements, Takashi interrupted gently. I'm asking about permanent ones. Trinity's breath caught as Takashi reached into his pocket and removed a small black box. This isn't how I planned to do this, he admitted. I had arranged a private dinner tonight, with the Tokyo skyline projected on the walls. Your favorite music. He smiled self-consciously. But standing here, seeing all we've built together, I find I can't wait any longer. He opened the box, revealing a ring of elegant simplicity, a perfect diamond set in platinum with subtle Japanese engraving inside the band. Trinity Wallace, Takashi said, His voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. You saw me when I was invisible. You transformed not just a company, but my understanding of what matters in life. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? For a moment, Trinity stood speechless, the always articulate COO rendered silent by genuine emotion. Then she laughed softly. You realize this will confirm every rumor about how I rose to my position. Takashi's expression grew serious. Anyone who knows you, who has seen you lead this transformation, understands your position was earned through extraordinary capability. Our personal connection is entirely separate from professional merit. Trinity placed her hand against his cheek. I know. I was joking badly, it seems. So your answer is yes, Trinity said simply. Of course it's yes. As Takashi slipped the ring onto her finger, Trinity marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment, from a chance encounter at Lumiere to partners in both business and life. The engraving, she asked, examining the beautiful Japanese characters inside the band. What does it say? Asterisk Nanakarobi Yaoki, asterisk Takashi translated. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. The philosophy that brought us together. Before Trinity could respond, their moment was interrupted by excited voices approaching. Zora appeared first, her expression knowing when she spotted the ring on Trinity's finger. Finally, she exclaimed, Jackson owes me $20. I said you'd propose today. He thought you'd wait until tonight. Jackson appeared behind her with the elder Harrington, both smiling broadly. In my defense, Takashi told me he had dinner plans. I couldn't wait, Takashi admitted, his arm around Trinity's waist. The elder Harrington approached, taking Trinity's hand to examine the ring. Well done, young man. Though I expect this means you'll be taking my granddaughter to Japan eventually. With frequent returns to Chicago, Trinity assured him. We'll need to oversee the North American operations, after all. And visit family, Jackson added meaningfully. As her siblings and grandfather offered congratulations, Trinity felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Charles Harrington standing awkwardly behind her, clearly having overheard the news. Congratulations, he said formally. You've chosen better than your mother did. The comparison might have stung once, but Trinity now understood it as Charles's acknowledgement of his own failings. Thank you, she replied simply. Charles hesitated, then added, I hope you'll allow Marjorie and me to host an engagement celebration, something appropriate to mark the occasion. The offer, from a man who had denied her existence for decades, represented significant evolution. Trinity glanced at Takashi, who nodded his support for whatever she decided. We'd be honored, she said, choosing grace over grievance. Thank you, Charles. As the impromptu celebration continued, with family members both biological and chosen surrounding them, Takashi leaned close to Trinity. Are you happy? He asked quietly. Trinity considered the question deeply. 1 year ago, she had been a struggling waitress supporting her siblings, invisible to the powerful, her potential unrecognized. Now she led a transformed company, had reunited a fractured family, and found a partner who saw and valued her completely. Profoundly, she answered honestly. Though not because of external changes. No. I'm happy because I finally understand my worth isn't determined by anyone else's recognition, Trinity explained. Not Charles's, not the company's, not even yours, though your love means everything to me. Takashi nodded, understanding. Self-worth independent of external validation. The most valuable transformation of all. As they rejoined their family to continue celebrating, Trinity reflected on the strange symmetry of their journey. Takashi had entered Lumiere disguised as an ordinary man to discover who people truly were. Trinity had been an ordinary woman whose extraordinary qualities were revealed through that chance encounter. The invisible billionaire and the overlooked waitress had seen each other's true essence when status and pretense were stripped away. In doing so, they had transformed not just a company, but themselves, and created a foundation for a future neither could have imagined a year before. Later that evening, as sunset painted Chicago's skyline in golden hues, Trinity and Takashi stood on the hotel's rooftop garden, momentarily alone amid the continuing celebrations below. I've been thinking about what happens next, Trinity said. After the Tokyo expansion, after the wedding. And what have you concluded? Takashi asked, his arm around her waist. That we should establish a foundation, Trinity replied. To identify and support people with potential who lack opportunity, especially in the hospitality industry. Takashi smiled. Looking for more invisible waitresses with hidden talents and overlooked dishwashers who might become billionaires, Trinity added, referencing his own humble beginnings. People who need someone to see them as they truly are, not as their circumstances suggest. A perfect legacy, Takashi agreed. Using our story to create opportunities for others. As night fell over the city, the Phoenix Hotel, once the emblem of a corrupt system, glowed with new purpose. Inside, employees who had once been trapped in rigid hierarchies now moved with the confidence of true stakeholders. Guests experienced service born of genuine care rather than enforced protocol. And at the center of this transformation stood two people who understood that true value had nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with character. Trinity Wallace and Takashi Watanabe had discovered each other when one pretended to be nobody and the other was treated as if she were. Together, they had created something extraordinary. A business built on authentic human connection, a relationship founded on mutual recognition, and a future dedicated to seeing the potential in others that the world too often overlooked. As Trinity looked toward that future, with her chosen family, her reclaimed heritage, and the partner who had seen her worth from the beginning, she embraced the Japanese wisdom that had guided their journey. Nanakarobi Yoki. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. She had fallen and risen repeatedly throughout her life. But now, standing beside Takashi, as they surveyed all they had built together, Trinity knew with absolute certainty that some falls led to the most unexpected and perfect destinations. Thank you so much for joining Trinity and Takashi on their journey from invisibility to transformation. I hope you enjoyed this story of recognition, redemption, and finding value in unexpected places. If you did, please hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more stories like this one. Let me know in the comments what you thought about our invisible billionaire and the waitress who could see beyond appearances. What was your favorite part? I'd love to hear from you.